Hi, I'm Chris Scott. I'm a freelance lighting designer and programmer. We're here at Cyan, a lighting supply company, in their live streaming space here in High Wycombe. So a lighting designer is really the person who's in charge of the lighting and decides artistically what the show's going to look like and how people are going to be lit. They'll talk to other members of the creative departments to make sure everything's working together, and also to the creative director who has the overall creative plan for the show. And then, they'll put all of that together and they'll come up with the lighting design, and they will also then direct everything on the day. So I also work quite a lot as a lighting programmer. So this is kind of the interface between a lighting designer and the lighting rig. So I will operate the lighting desk, programming the cues, telling the lights what they need to do, while taking artistic direction from the lighting designer. Lighting design is hugely broad. I mainly operate in live music, and I work as a programmer for LDs in television, but we have LDs for theatre, all the way to when you go to the shopping centre, an architectural lighting designer has looked at the space and come up with the lighting plan on it as to how that's going to look. So one of my main projects in the year is I'm a lighting designer for Young Voices. Young Voices is an arena show for kids of primary school age that gives them the opportunity to perform in arenas such as the O2, Manchester MEN and Birmingham Resorts World Arena. They learn all the songs throughout the summer, and then they come together in January. In each of the venues, they get a day, the afternoon of rehearsing, and then they put on a show to their parents in the evening. So my role on Young Voices as lighting designer, it's really important for me to interface with, the other departments from a creative viewpoint. I look after the overall look of the show, how the lighting works. So, I will work with the creative director, I'll work with the sound designer, but then I'll also need to work with production and the production manager, dealing with costs and logistics. And then also within the lighting department, I will then have a lighting crew chief and lighting techs, and it's I need to work with them and allow the crew chief to do his job, is to lead the lighting team as a whole. So sometimes I'll even take a step back and be like, okay, you've made that decision, we're going to run with that, because at the end of the day, I'm kind of looking at the artistic view, whereas he's looking at it from a more operational point of view as to how we're going to make things work. And a typical day, a loading day, for example, would rock up at about 4 a.m, and the riggers would start putting the points on the floor to get all the lighting trusses in the correct places. And then we tend to turn up about 6 a.m, start unloading the trusses out of the truck, building everything over the stage. And then once the lighting rig is flown, I will then start using the lighting desk, updating presets, positions, so that everything's in the right place for when we perform in that venue. So from a young age, I've always been interested in lighting. I don't know why. It started off with torches and quality street wrappers, and you could put it over the top, and you get different coloured lights. And ever since then, I've been absolutely fascinated with it. As soon as I started at secondary school, then given an opportunity to work on school productions, and I was straight in working with the other students who were doing the lighting. So after secondary school, once I really knew what I wanted to do, I struggled a little bit, to be honest. And I struggled because it was hard to find a course that did specifically what I wanted to do. There was loads of courses to go and sing and to perform, but the school I was at, trying to find resources to say I wanted to work backstage was quite difficult. And I actually ended up doing a year at sixth form in a performing arts course, and I ended up doing loads of acting, which I absolutely hated, but whenever there was an opportunity to do the lighting or the sound, I'd always jump on it. And then sort of halfway through that year, the teachers, they recognised that it wasn't really working, and we sort of all put our heads together, and I found a BTEC course in technical theatre at Amersham College, and it was perfect. 2 years of lighting, staging, sound, costume, special effects makeup. It was exactly what I wanted to do. And then after that, I actually ended up having a child at 17, which then pushed me in the direction of moving into work straight away. I think originally, had that not happened, I would have gone into university, but I needed to go into work. So my first job was at a company called Production Resource Group, and I started in the warehouse just prepping lights. So the lights would come in from a previous show, we'd clean them. If there was any things broken, I'd fix them. And then I went on to do load-ins and load-outs, learning all the bits and pieces. Then working as, staying on site for a little bit longer as a tech and dealing with fixing lights when they were broken. And then from there, I was then given opportunities to do a little bit of programming here. It might have been, can you operate for the support artist? And then, sometimes shows would come in who, little shows, we don't have a lighting designer. And I'll be like, yeah, cool, I'll have a look at that. And it was good as well because I had access to this vast amount of equipment. So I could stay late, I could have a play on the console, and I learned a lot from being full-time for so long. And I actually stayed with PRG for 13 years because I was actually really well looked after. And they gave me a really good career progression. Looking at the whole journey, I think in the end it worked out perfect. I ended up learning some real valuable lessons working for PRG in the warehouse and amongst an amazing group of people, and I wouldn't have changed the whole journey. Actually, when I started in the warehouse, I started at the same time as someone else similar age to me but had come through the degree route, and I don't feel that he at the time had any sort of competitive advantage over me, and actually we're both now doing similar roles. If anything, coming through a more hands-on approach with, working in the warehouse in the earlier days, sometimes you can have a better education. I know that on the university side, you've got that whole social element as well, and there's a lot more opportunities to network because you have industry professionals coming in to talk, where, I probably didn't get as many opportunities as that. But still, in the warehouse, I, pushed myself forward, pushed myself in front of people as much as I could just to give myself those opportunities. What I'd say to people wanting to get into it is it's not just about your technical or artistic ability. You need to be a nice person. You need to get on with people. You need to be able to network. And I feel that is such an important part of all of this. And a lot of my opportunities have come from me networking. One thing I always say to people starting out is when you do those load-ins and load-outs, when people say, do you want to go for a drink after the load-out, it's so important. That networking afterwards is where you could pick up your next gig. This is now becoming quite a competitive industry. There's a lot of people coming through university who all want to jump straight into being a lighting designer. So it's important that, you need to take those opportunities to stay late, those favours you have from people to use equipment to really, push your understanding of everything and, just give yourself the best opportunity. My favourite subjects at school were music and drama, funnily enough, because that's now what I basically work in. Funnily enough, I'd say one of my least favourite subjects was maths. And the reason I say that is because I really struggled with being taught stuff with no context. So, we'd be taught about working out the long side of a triangle. And I'd be like, why? And I'm sure kids nowadays are like, why are we even learning this? This is not relevant to my day-to-day life. But actually, I'm now a lot better at maths because those sorts of equations I now use as part of lighting design and programming. Calculating beam angles and throw distances, it's all relevant. So I think, that's interesting that, once I added a context to the maths, I then started to understand it a lot more. So my role in various productions changes hugely project to project, day to day. Sometimes as a lighting programmer, I will only be dealing with the lighting designer and the lighting crew. And then as a lighting designer, it depends on the size of the show. Sometimes you can be hugely involved in sometimes even, how people are moving around on stage. It depends on your relationship with the people you're working with. So tools for the job include sort of starting from the very beginning of the process. We'll be using CAD programs to design and lay out the lighting plot. That'll be like AutoCAD or Vectorworks. Vectorworks is actually what I use. And then after that, a lot of the time we need to show the client what their show's going to look like. And there's lots of programs out there now that using sort of video game engines can show a virtual environment as to what the show's going to look like. So I can take a render out of that and supply it to the client. So at the moment I use a program called WYSIWYG. And not only can we sort of do still renders, we can then use that program and connect it up to the lighting desk, which is then used to program all the shows. We can then connect WYSIWYG to the lighting desk, and the lighting desk can control the lighting rig in virtual reality as though we are actually in the venue using the lighting rig. And this is really important because production don't want to pay for me to be sat in the O2 Arena for 5 days while I program all the songs in, where actually I can sit in a nice warm studio with a big TV and program all the songs over a couple of days. And then it means that when we move into the venue, that we're in a really strong position to then start the show. So a lighting desk is the interface between us people and the lights. It allows us to program presets, position presets, colours and cues, and it allows us to create a cue list so that we can play back the show night after night exactly the same. The Grandam A2 is the desk that I use, but that's, everyone has a preference. There are plenty of manufacturers out there. So this is a Grandam A3 lighting desk. So here we can select some lights, we can choose a colour, we can change the position of our lights, and then over here we've got 15 playbacks. We can store what we've just selected and store it into a queue so that we can then play that back later. So it's really important to keep up with technology. In our industry, it moves really quickly, and you need to stay at the forefront. Keeping an eye online, keeping in touch with the manufacturers, finding out what's coming out next. YouTube is great, lots of product videos of how stuff works, and then trade shows as well. Going to trade shows, seeing all the new products, seeing what's coming out, talking to manufacturers and finding out, what their new product does and what stuff they have in the pipeline. So what I'd say to someone wanting to get into the creative industries is, you need to push yourself. You need to be using any opportunities to look at your skills and how you can push yourself further. And also you need to network, speak to lighting suppliers, get out there, help out where you can, get some experience. And above all is networking, is make those connections, because you never know where your next gig will come from. If you look at something and think, wow, I want to do that, push yourself and go and do it, because we spend so much time at work as part of our lives, and I think it's so important that you need to enjoy what you do. Every morning I wake up and I'm excited to go to work. I cannot wait, and I think that's really, really important for your whole mental health. And I've had it when I've been at front of house at the O2. A little kid walks past and he's sort of peering over the little barrier, looking at all the buttons and screens, and you could tell he was really interested. So I invited him round and let him have a little flash of a few lights, and that could then have sparked his interest moving forwards. And I think it's important to know that there are so many jobs supporting live music in the background. There's hundreds and thousands of us that put the show together. It's not just the people on stage.